global business. China will shore up the confidence of business entities and prioritize attracting foreign investment, according to the latest Politburo meeting presided over by President Xi Jinping on Friday. The 13th Beijing International Film Festival is currently taking place in the Huairou district of Beijing. We take a closer look at the trend of internet films and cloud cinema. The Bank of Japan kept its ultra-low interest rates and announced a broad review of its monetary policy. From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Michelle Vandenberg. China will shore up the confidence of business entities and prioritize attracting foreign investment. This is according to a meeting of the Political Bureau presided over by President Xi Jinping on Friday. The meeting analyzed the current economic situation and planned out the work ahead. Boosting domestic demand is high on the agenda, for it is the key to the economic recovery in China. To help businesses recover, the country aims at breaking down legal and regulatory barriers and creating a level playing field for all market players. Technology can help, the meeting said, as China advocates attaching great importance to the development of artificial intelligence. The meeting also touched upon other issues such as trade and employment. It said China will stabilize its trade sector and prioritize attracting more investments from overseas. And the current jobs market situation requires authorities to continue to create more opportunities for a record number of college graduates this year. Now, for more discussions on the Politburo meeting and the outlook for the Chinese economy this year, let's bring in Liu Baocheng, Dean for the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Thank you, Professor Liu, for joining us. So, what were the main topics you think discussed during this Politburo meeting in relation to China's economy, and what are the country's top priorities now for boosting economic growth?
Yes, as you rightly said, the focus is highly centered around the boosting Chinese economic growth. And now that China has shifted the gear towards the economic recovery from the COVID control, because the Chinese economy, as many other larger economies, were highly deterred in its growth rate due to the last 3 years pandemic. Now China is now shifting its gear. And to boost the economic growth, we need to restore the confidence of the market, which really touches on both the supply end, also the consumption end. So therefore, and also how to shore up the vulnerable businesses that were hardly hit by the pandemic, particularly the service sector, like traveling and retailing, etc. So this is really the focus. Another focus is really how to shore up the employment rate, because right now, the youth employment rate is not really very ideal, and now we also have a coming pressure of more than 10 million graduates from colleges in a matter of 4 months. So therefore, this is really the consideration, and also, how we can really further deal with the reform and opening process so that we could create a enabling environment for all business players to contribute to the economic growth and also the transformation of the Chinese industrial structure.
For the coming months of this year, what factors do you think will be the main drivers for growth? Can we expect the same level of growth in consumption and trade as we've seen in the previous couple of months?
Well, I think for China in particular, the policy orientation is the decisive factor in boosting the Chinese economy. And those policies are there to support more of the technological innovation. As you mentioned, the AI and the digital economy shall play out in a larger contribution to the Chinese, not only the quantitative growth, but also the quality of growth. And that can also help to reshape the Chinese industrial structure so that we can have more added value. And the other issue is how we can really dismantle those barriers, across different regions, across different sectors, so that the transaction cost can be further reduced for all businesses, and the consumers can really have a better entitlement to all the goods and services. And the other is, we are making all the efforts to create a more business-friendly environment on global basis, because Chinese business is highly interdependent with the rest of the world. So, how we can really, the other issue is how we can really increase the human capacity in which the human skill sets can really meet the rising demand for high skills and high standard in manufacture and also in the service sectors.
Yeah, we do have a lot of graduates and also a lot of positions. So how to match them is a big question right now. Last but not least, what's your outlook for growth this year? I know we've seen very optimistic data from the first quarter. A lot of people have upward revised their expectation for the second quarter and for the whole year. What's your expectations, and what do you see as the main challenges facing the country's economy this year?
Well, the Asia area has served as the locomotive for global growth for so many years, and China is definitely the bright spot. Actually, by WTO forecast, the world shall grow by 2.4% for this year. And as a matter of fact, for China, we're going to double this figure. So this is not only helping the Chinese economic rehabilitation and also growth, but also show great contribution to the global growth. So 5% growth rate is there, carefully calculated without major interruptions. We definitely do not really have much surprise to achieve this target. But the challenge lies on global marketplace, where interest hikes and dealing with hyperinflation is still there to create more of the volatility in the financial marketplace and also in monetary policies. And we do not know how the Ukraine crisis and many other regional conflicts can really fare to further add the wounds into add salt into the wounds of the global economic recovery. But definitely over the domestic environment, we can see that more of the foreign businesses, SOEs and private businesses are really teaming up to really give a further impetus for Chinese economic growth.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Without much of the comprehension, we're going to achieve that target.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainties globally for sure. Thank you so much for your insights. We really appreciate your time. Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Now, with the Labor Day holiday just around the corner, China is preparing for a travel rush after the easing of COVID-19 controls. Fresh data from China Eastern Airlines show that more than 40,000 passengers are expected to take flights to various destinations today. It will be the biggest number of passengers traveling in a single day during the last 3 years. The China Tourism Academy estimates that there will be 240 million trips nationwide during the holiday, a 4% increase from the pre-COVID year of 2019. In the meantime, the National Immigration Administration reports that entries and exits will exceed 1 million per day, a 2% increase from last year. Data from the travel platform Ctrip shows that the inbound flight bookings during the holiday have increased 1.5 times compared to 2019, and hotel bookings have also exceeded pre-pandemic levels. Meanwhile, the film industry in China is also preparing for a record-breaking season, with 17 new films set to release in the coming week. As of today, the total box office for Labor Day holiday films have exceeded 230 million yuan, according to data from Lighthouse platform. China's tourism industry is preparing for a surge in travel as the 5-day Labor Day holiday approaches. With travel restrictions lifted, more people are anticipated to travel abroad, and travel agencies are gearing up for the influx of tourists. We have the latest details on how the industry is poised to handle the holiday season. Our Ying Junyi has the story.
The country's tourism industry is expected to recover rapidly over the 5-day May Day holiday. Flight bookings for the holiday have already exceeded 6 million, according to the Civil Aviation Administration. The bookings match the same period in 2019. Online travel agencies are reporting a year-on-year surge of 700% in trip bookings for the holiday. The pent-up demand to travel abroad has been gradually unleashed as well.
We
plan to go to Thailand. Many celebrities are also said to take trips there this year.
I plan to take short trips. But I will take an international trip with my daughter during the National Day holiday, somewhere like Thailand or Bali.
Travel service provider Fliggy said reservations are rocketing for Labor Day trips abroad. Some of its niche travel products are garnering attention.
Compared to the Spring Festival this year, our outbound trip bookings for the Labor Day holiday have more than doubled. More travelers, especially young people, are showing interest in many niche travel packages. For example, we received more than 100 bookings the day we launched an Antarctica tour.
More outbound travel packages will be available at some points as the Ministry of Transportation announced that international cruises will be restored after a 3-year suspension. Many cruise companies have been preparing and look forward to a full recovery in the sector.
We are preparing cruises to countries nearby, including Japan, South Korea and the Philippines. The cruise itself is a destination, a resort. We also need to get our cruises liners ready. We expect the industry to fully recover to the pre-COVID level within 1.5 to 2 years' time.
According to the China Tourism Academy, 4.5 billion domestic trips will be taken this year, roughly 76% of that in 2019. Outbound travel is expected to see a twofold year-on-year rise to 90 million this year. Yingjun Isis for CGTN Shanghai.
You're watching Global Business, still to come. The 13th Beijing International Film Festival is currently taking place in Beijing. We take a closer look at the trend of internet films and cloud cinema.
"360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.
The 13th Beijing International Film Festival is currently taking place in the Huairou district of Beijing. Held between April 22nd and 29th, it is the first international film festival in China to return offline since the country optimized its COVID-19 prevention measures. Hundreds of film industry insiders from home and abroad are in attendance to connect with Chinese audiences and tap into the domestic market. The festival has many diverse offerings, including the Tiantan Award ceremony, movie screenings and forums, a film carnival, and a college student film festival. This year, 15 productions are competing for the Tiantan Award, and the winners will be announced at the closing ceremony on April 29th. Film and television enterprises from around the world have been invited to establish richer and more diversified cooperation with Chinese filmmakers. At the 13th BJIFF Beijing Film Market in Beijing, associated companies within the industry are also being encouraged to look at opportunities in China. Wang Siwen has more.
Gathering global film companies within the industry, film production, copyright sales, and so on. Meeting the needs of Chinese and international film institutions for branding and crossover cooperation. As part of the film festival, the Beijing Film Market has gathered film companies from different countries, saying more efforts will be made to open Chinese market. Thailand is a guest of honor for this year's festival. It has brought 8 film production companies here.
7 บริษัทก็มีความหลากหลายนะคะ
We have brought companies covering pre-production, post-production, copyright, filming assistance, and so on, making sure the team will communicate well. All the needs are covered with Chinese filmmakers.
ที่ให้บริการด้านสตูดิโอด้วย
The Korean Film Council has brought 5 Korean movies for screening and 4 Korean film companies.
In the future, we will have free Korean movie screening every week, Korean filmmaker communication from time to time, to boost the two countries' film communication.
There are also panels about international cooperation and cultural exchanges with film, and this is also the first time for Jamie Chen, an American filmmaker, to attend the festival. He shared why he's so passionate about making films.
Transcended cultural boundaries, and that's what's so beautiful about filmmaking and having these great stories, is that when you find a story that might seem like not a lot of people might understand, but if you find the humanity in it, it crosses all boundaries. I'm obviously very excited to work in China.
With all the offline activities resumed and the cultural communication strengthened, Chin says one different ideas come together for a common cause is how you can push the progress of the filmmaking. Wang Siwen, CGTN, Beijing.
Now, for more discussions on the Chinese film industry, we're joined by Jin Yuchen, Vice President of Shanghai Jinqiao College. Yuchen, so first, what are some of the emerging trends in China's movie markets, and how are they shaping the industry right now?
Yes, I think there are two trends that are worth noting. First, the biggest trend is that the crowd is finally back. The 2023 Spring Festival season saw the largest increase in recent years in terms of both box office revenues and production numbers. Over the course of just 7 days, the box office revenues reached roughly $1 billion US, representing an 11.89% increase from the year prior. Thanks to the reopening and thanks to the return of consumer confidence. The second trend we've seen is that domestic films are doing really well, both domestically and internationally. Over the course of the Spring Festival season, I saw 2 films. Both were domestically produced films, The Wandering Earth 2 and Full River Red, and I really like both. So this is just an example of how domestically produced films are really gaining popularity among all generations. Mm-hmm. And also, some of the films are doing great internationally too. Take The Wandering Earth 2, for example. I mean, this is just a great example of how the Chinese films are going global, and these international themes really resonated with this global audience.
Now, with post-pandemic consumption on the rise, and as you mentioned, we're also seeing a resurgence in movie theater attendance. Do you expect that resurgence to continue? And what impact is that having on film production?
Absolutely. I think over the course of the Spring Festival, the number, movie theater admissions reached over 129 million. This is again a 13% increase from the year prior. So as the numbers go up, film productions are also are also recovering. And obviously today China has 2 big film production bases, one in the south, Hengdian, and one in the north in the Shandong province, Qingdao. So these 2 bases really serve the needs, I would say, 90% of the needs of the Chinese directors. For example, The Wandering Earth 2 was made in Qingdao in the number 5 studio, which is really advanced. If you think about it, a lot of the TV series are made in Hengdian, but a lot of the more advanced films are now made in Qingdao. So we're really seeing the resurgence of film production domestically, and I'm sure there will be more films coming out this year and also next year.
Yeah, very excited about that. Looking forward to lots of good movies coming up soon. One of the trends you just mentioned is that Chinese movies are making a big splash on the international scene as well. But what still needs to be done to increase their popularity?
Absolutely. I mean, Chinese films Chinese investors have been investing globally in entertainment, and we've seen a lot of co-productions. And in addition to those, domestically made films are doing well internationally as well. The Wandering Earth 2 was a great example of that. But I think there's still a gap to be filled there. I think Chinese films still need to catch up in terms of some of the quality and also acting and in terms of script. I think in addition to the more technical part, there's also the need to promote the Chinese language globally, because so much is lost in translation when you have a dubbed version or you have the subtitles. It's really important for the international audience to understand the Chinese language, because the language is so nuanced and the culture is so interesting and so fascinating. If you understand the Chinese language, you get to taste so much more of the film itself. So I myself, have been in the HSK education, which is the Chinese proficiency test, and we've seen so much interest coming from the international communities in terms of learning the Chinese language. I think learning the language and the culture will help the international audience better appreciate the beauty of the Chinese films, and in turn help Chinese films go global.
Yeah, and having more Chinese films in the global market is definitely great for China's soft power, which is super important right now. Thank you so much for all your insights, Jin Yuchen, Vice President of China Jinqiao College, for us. Bank of Japan decided to continue with its ultra-loose monetary policy on Friday, despite rising inflationary pressures. The Japanese central bank kept a short-term interest rate target at a historic low of minus 0.1% and left the 10-year bond yield around zero. Meanwhile, the BOJ has raised inflation outlook for the current fiscal year, with the core consumer price index expected to gain 1.8% instead of the previous estimate of 1.6%. The BOJ also decided to conduct a broad prospective policy review, which may believe hints an adjustment from the ultra-loose stand. But some analysts point out the review could last more than a year, and that might dampen hopes for a policy change. Japan's newly appointed central bank governor, Kazuo Uda, is encouraging obstacles in his efforts to normalize the country's ultra-loose monetary policy. Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo with the latest details.
It's the front line of Japan's economy. Shoppers are battling it out against months of persistent price hikes, fueled by increasing import costs and a weakening yen.
I'm suffering. The price of eggs is especially going up, so it'd cost me a lot of money if I eat more than one egg every day.
The electricity bill has gone up, even though I'm using less electricity than last year. I'm trying to save, and I want electricity to become cheaper because there is a limit to how much I can save, even if I try my best.
Global concern over inflation has prompted many of the world's biggest central banks to aggressively raise interest rates. Japan is bucking that trend.
The Bank of Japan wants to keep interest rates as low as possible. It's worried that hiking them could stifle consumer spending and hamper the country's recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic.
The policy has been spearheaded by Japan's long-term central bank governor Haruhiko Kuroda, but his departure after a decade in charge is opening the door for a change in direction. Global investor eyes are now on his successor, the 71-year-old academic Kazuo Ueda.
We are assessing whether the inflation rate, as we often say, will stably and sustainably achieve 2%. If achieving this can be foreseen, we might need to normalize monetary policy. If it is difficult, we may need to come up with a more sustainable framework with an eye on the side effects of monetary easing.
The Bank of Japan wants wages to rise before taking action. Economists say a dramatic shift in strategy is unlikely.
So Japan faces some particular challenges in setting monetary policy, such as facing an aging population, a declining population, and both of those mean that Japan cannot rely on domestic consumer demand to grow the economy like other economies like the United States can.
While the central bank mulls its next move, the waiting game continues for concerned consumers and international investors. Chris Gilbert for CGTN, Tokyo.
Now to some other headlines that we're tracking at this hour. The Eurozone grew marginally in the first 3 months of 2023 after stagnation at the end of last year. The single currency bloc's economic output expanded by 0.1% in the first quarter, and in the meantime, it reported 1.3% growth from a year ago. Southeast Asia is emerging as a hotspot for global initial public offerings and accounted for nearly 7% of global IPO funds raised so far this year, according to data service company Refinitiv. That almost doubles the level of 4% recorded in the same period last year. UK business sentiment is reaching its most optimistic level in nearly a year in April, according to a private survey. The Lloyds Bank's Business Barometer gauge of confidence rose to 33% in the month, 1 percentage point up from the level seen in March. And that will do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Misha Vandenberg in Beijing. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.